Hi class, Professor Pronte here with the final video in this unit about the process by which we're seeing less competition throughout our markets in the late 1800s. So a lot of the factors that we've talked about so far have been things that have just been taking place naturally. Industrialization, economies of scale, economies associated with geography, the development of financial markets. These are natural characteristics of market behavior and are not an indication of a lack of competition that comes from anybody doing anything illegal or wrong. Today, we're going to get into this observation of businesses taking steps to actively limit competition, which in fact is different than those other factors we were talking about before and is a representation of something that now is illegal and I think a lot of people would say is wrong. All right, so one of the big things that we saw here in the late 1800s was the existence of lots of firms engaging in collusion. That's a term to know, collusion. Under normal circumstances, businesses are competing against one another. When they decide to collude, though, they're doing something different. Collusion is representing firms that have teamed up with one another. They've linked their actions. They've decided to coordinate pricing decisions or output decisions or something of this nature. It's a lot of words, a lot of terms that are very much related to this general description of collusion. One form of this is called price fixing. This is something that takes place when firms agree on what price to charge. Right? You keep your price high, I'll promise to do the same, and if both of our prices are high, we're not undercutting each other, there's more profit to be earned. So that's one form of collusion. Another form that this can take is when firms decide to form a trust. It's another term to know. With a trust, what firms do is they hand over control, management decisions, to one centralized decision maker. Right? So a trust then is this representation where there's a group of firms or individuals where their interests are all managed up at the top by one person, a trustee. And so this has the effect of limiting competition as well. If businesses are all aligned and there's that one trustee looking out for everyone, then it's not competitive. Instead, it's much more similar to a monopoly. Another term here that is related to anti-competitive practices is when firms engage in pooling. And here what they do is they pool either profits or sales. Firms in a pooling arrangement might make an agreement wherein one firm would agree to sell to customers in one part of the country and another firm would take another geography. So they're sort of separating the market for themselves. Or they can pool their sales all together and then divide the profits at the end. All these are talking really about the same central problem, which is firms getting on the same page with each other instead of competing against one another. And of course, consumers end up losing from that. So we saw then these anti-competitive practices throughout the economy. You saw this in oil. You saw this with cattle. You saw this in sugar. You saw this with meat packing. These anti-competitive practices alongside all those mergers that we were talking about in our previous video. And so what to do about it? We saw some notable antitrust legislation introduced in this time period. And what that means is new laws designed to promote competition and to stop firms from becoming too powerful. There's a couple famous pieces of legislation that I want you guys to know about. The first one is the Sherman Act. And the effect of the Sherman Act was to ban monopolies. I'll put the exact language in the module here so you can see precisely what this did, but that was the intention. The idea that it's not a good thing for our economy and for our society to have monopolies, and so the Sherman Act is trying to address that problem. Another famous piece of antitrust legislation is the Clayton Act. And this took place a little bit later. The Clayton Act didn't pass until 1914. A lot of our antitrust policies that we have today came from the Clayton Act. That's kind of a cool thing to see. For example, in our government today, one part of the government is the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, and their job is to oversee these antitrust laws and make sure that we have enough competition. The Clayton Act made it illegal for companies to have interlocking directorates. The directorate term that I'm using is referencing the board of directors, the folks that have the most power in any one firm. Clayton Act said that it's against the law for two companies to have interlocking boards of directors, interlocking directorates, and as a result have one set of people managing the both firms. The Clayton Act made it illegal to buy stock in a competitor's company with the objective of gaining power, right? So if you are the majority shareholder in Burger King, it is against the law to buy stock in McDonald's, trying to essentially make those two competing companies look more like one company. The Clayton Act, in some cases, made tying contracts illegal, which is to say that if you're buying one thing, you're obligated to buy something else as well. All right, so lots of different specific examples then of how the Clayton Act is hoping to promote competition. There we go, guys. That's it for this video. Like I said, make sure that you're looking in the module description as well. I'm going to add some of those definitions that you should know so that way you guys can see it in writing as well as seeing it here in the video. All right, guys. See you next time. Bye.